Okay, good morning, folks. What a lovely Monday morning. And what a promising beginning to a brand new week. I believe that most of us, if not all of us, would have had a refreshing and rejuvenating weekend. And we are set and ready to go this week. Of course, today, Monday, 19th October 2020, a lot of us remember that in 1983, on this date, the Grenada Revolution. We remember that, the second one, as it were, because in 1979, Maurice Rupert Bishop and some of his followers had gotten rid of Eric Matthew Gary and his government at the time. But 4 years later, some argue that the revolution self-destruct. Some say it was machinated by others, it was engendered and engineered by outside forces. But be that as it may, on this date in 1983, it came to a climax, as it were, and the bishop and others were killed. That precipitated, of course, a so-called invasion led by the United States and fully supported by many other Caribbean countries. And so we have that episode in our Caribbean history. A lot of us, very young people at the time, we supported Bishop. We were idealistic. We had that sense of militancy, as it were, and radicalism. We supported Bishop. This is why he got one of the most rousing receptions when he came in 1981 for the signing of the Treaty of Bastille. And we were very shocked to hear that he had died. As a matter of fact, he was also here in 1983, September, for our independence. And a month later, in October 19th, 1983, 1 month after our independence, Bishop was dead. So, you might want to make a comment on that. Otherwise, we have an open line for today. The rest of the week, we're going to have guests. I'm going to have guests for the rest of the week, but for today, it's an open line. So you're free to talk to us about whatever would have happened over the weekend, what happened the last week in terms of national developments, what's happening Caribbean-wide, internationally, and make your comments known, as it were. So call us. Feel free to call us here on ZIZ Radio, Frank and Candid. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, my friend.
Yes, sir.
I want to just give me the answer what I asked about the other day.
The difference between normality and normalcy?
And normality. But before you go on, I really call so quick to tell you, I was saying before, that your reception is not good. I'm calling from Challengers area. Another station coming through with you. So it is very distorted.
You hearing that?
Hello?
I'm asking my technician friend here, GQ, if he is hearing that. The comment that the individual just made.
You talk a little fast,
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, I have to work on that. My apologies. I definitely have to work on that. Yes. He's suggesting that in Challengers, the reception is poor.
Yes, they're not good at all. Since last week, what he was right now, are you hearing people chatting and sending requests? I don't know what station. So he ain't sound good. He ain't sound good at all.
I see. All right.
I don't know if it's all around, but
yeah, I guess the guys will get in it. Yeah, my apologies for that.
Yeah, all right.
Okay. Right, okay. My friend had asked the difference between normality and normalcy. We're using this expression new normal very often, and to me it's a kind of contradiction in terms. But actually there's no difference between the two words. They're very synonymous. Normalcy is a replacement, a substitute, as it were, for normality. Normality is a replacement, a substitute for normalcy. You can use either one interchangeably. There is no fundamental syntactic or etymological difference between both words. You can use them as you wish. So that it's a state of normality, a state of normalcy. Both are just as correct. And what I don't agree with is when we engage in a new type of behavior, new practices, some of which are very uncomfortable, to me, which are rather abnormal, which have to me, there's nothing normal about them. Normal meaning regular, sensible, decent, if you wish, helpful. None of these was applied to what obtains in some aspects of the so-called new normal. I believe we should say new circumstances, new behaviors, new situations, as opposed to new normal. I imagine that over time, when one engages in certain behaviors, they become habits, they become practices, they become customs. And so over time, they might become normalized. But for the time being, I have not seen it being a new normal, because before we can acclimatize and have these new behaviors entrenched as permanent, they might change, circumstances might change, and we have to revert to what was or to something entirely new. So that I'm not so sure if the expression new normal is correct as it applies to the different set of circumstances, the different environment, the different impositions that have all been occasioned by COVID. All right, so that is what that obtains. Somebody also asked to find out what was the position of the cruise ships coming here. My preliminary investigation suggests that that is no longer on the table, but who knows, that might change again. And we might, now that we're about to open, we might have ships visiting from time to time, but not under the conditions which would have governed the visit of the cruise ships which we were expecting since I think it was August or September. But that is the findings which I have realized in my investigation which responds to that particular question. Right, 465-2555, call us here and share with us what's on your mind for today. There's been a lot of discussion still about the incident involving the motorcyclist and my friend Mr. Simon on Friday, and there's also discussion with respect to what's happening on the roads in Bastia, the roadworks on Keon Street and on Wellington Road, right up to the roundabout by the Kim Collins Highway, and also the traffic light. What's happening with some of our traffic lights in terms of their malfunctioning? Some of them certainly need to be reset. They need to be recalibrated. They need to be refined, in the minds and eyes of many people. What are your views on these matters and more? Then we had, of course, the House of Assembly meeting and passing some legislation regarding citizenship, regarding voting, ability to vote, right to vote, and some of the requirements now in place in order for one to be able to vote, and whether some persons are no longer going to be able to vote, as we have grown accustomed to in recent elections. What are your views on that? Okay, my position really is not to impose my views on others, but simply to share information. And of course, in the process, share my view. All right. So, let's talk a little bit about what happened in Grenada. Because in 1970, we had an attempted overthrow in Trinidad. And of course, that was repeated later. In later years, I can't remember the exact year right now, by Abu Bakr and some of his men. And to date, those two countries, Trinidad and Tobago and Grenada, are the only two member countries of CARICOM which have been subject to change of government other than via the ballot. Grenada, of course, stood out because that was successful. It was a successful coup d'etat, if you wish, organized by Maurice Bishop and executed while Eric Gary was abroad. And it lasted for 4 years. And in its initial stages, it suggested as though it was on a different track, positive trajectory, because Bishop was able to win over many persons in his corner, not only Grenadians themselves. And having visited Grenada, I can testify to that. Many Grenadians were in support of that action and in support of Bishop. In fact, they were very irate when Bishop was killed. And that contributed to the success of the invasion, quote unquote. But then we have to ask ourselves what would have precipitated such an act. We're supposed to be accustomed to and embracing the Westminster model of government, wherein one salient feature of which is regular elections. And the will of the people is supposed to be expressed in that process, and the rule of the majority is exercised. So what would have led to Bishop having to resort? Grenada had obtained independence in 1974. I think it was the first of the OECS countries to do so. What would have led then to Bishop and others deciding to change the course of Grenadian history and of the Caribbean to a large extent by engaging in a military overthrow, right? And which caused the lives of some. Was it really a dictatorship in the making, where opposition would have been snuffed out? Were there really instructions given by the Mongoose gang to eliminate members of the opposition who were seen to be leftists and communists and things like that? And so Bishop had to move in a preemptive way to safeguard his own life and that of others? Well, what's your view on that? And can that be, do you think that in 2020, going forward, that can be, that can happen again? Do you think that another coup d'etat can successfully occur in any Caribbean country? In fact, there was a time when coup d'etat was the norm for many countries, Latin America and Africa in particular. And, we have come to a point now where that is rather the exception rather than the rule, So do you think that can happen anywhere in the Caribbean? And if so, how so, why so, and if not, why not? But this is something we can very well think about as we consider the fact that today celebrates that anniversary. Some call it the end of the second revolution in Grenada. Let's take this caller. Hello, caller.
Hello, I can't remember your name. Anyway.
Blake.
I personally met Maurice Bishop twice, right?
So did I.
Once, twice, yeah. When that the Treaty of Bastille signing, the first one, they had a reception at Fort Thomas Hotel.
Definitely.
And a lot of ordinary people were there. That was a good thing. And I went and I asked him if he could meet the people, because the people love him in St. Kitts. I said, including Mika, I'll follow you. So he came over and he said, yes, man. The bodyguard went and thanked him. He told them, no. I feel better in St. Kitts than in Grenada.
That was in 1981?
And when he came back, when we had independence,
yes,
at Government House, I went by him and the bodyguard was pushing me away too. But he told them, no, man. I remember this guy. And this is St. Kitts. But he never looked happy.
In 1983?
At Government House.
Right, yeah.
He never looked happy
He didn't look too happy at all, is right. I met him at OTI with a group of other youngsters.
And afterwards, I remember, well, you see, he was the most popular person in the kind of mix that they had there.
Yes.
I remember they had overthrown this man, Gary.
Of course.
I was glad when they overthrew Gary, because Gary was doing a lot of things to people. People didn't get killed when they had state of emergency and all of that, including Bishop's father,
right,
Rupert Bishop. They had subsequently named the fort there after him, but then they renamed it again. And then I understand that I can't confirm, but from certain sources, I understand that the U.S., even the government here was telling him don't go back, because intelligence was saying that they're going to have uprising, but nobody had any idea on the scale. And his demand code, his see people, his section, because he couldn't get the favor from the U.S. But Maurice Bishop was willing to go and have elections. He was very popular, and that's why they had the big division and then subsequent the uprising. But Maurice Bishop people were demonstrating, because them started thing there where I saw something in a magazine. He went to live in a house near to where Bishop was living, and they say which way this gate is going to swing, should swing. if he swing on one side, he can be in the way of Bishop. And if he go in the other way, he can be in the way of the man court. And then murder the man, and then not only that, the murder his girlfriend who was pregnant, he come on the wife. And all of that. And then his son get killed must be the next year in Canada. Somebody knife him down outside of this stuff. And so forth. And then never did tell his mother where he was buried. Well, woman said they burned the body.
Yes.
And people jump over the foot. They know how much people died up to this day. So, I was glad when the U.S. intervened because you can't be under my belly there and you got them kind of action here because Bishop was a more leftist. He was a left, but socialist, so to speak. But the other man, them were communists. And they were not getting the favor from the people like they expected. And the man called the wife for the Jamaican. She died there not so long ago. Yeah, and then, well, let me not go on no more because maybe I keep taking too long. But he was a very popular, respected man. I mean, and everybody had loved him, I say. And I saw you when they had to kill the man, and he people them, and then.
Yeah, what
do you say?
Do you think that we can have another similar kind of action in the Caribbean, and what are its chances of success?
Yeah, but the U.S. statement was that they can't allow this kind of thing to happen because the shipping lanes going from the U.S. to the Caribbean, and they don't want Russia to get a foothold. That's the statement they made. So, I mean, I'm glad because I may want to live on no communism and them kind of thing. Every ideology got flaws, none perfect. But let me live and die under what we call capitalism. You could see where you could choose, you could do all that things you can't do under a communist regime. And your freedom is greatly curtailed under communism. Yeah, let me say for now, and somebody follow up.
Thank you. Yeah,
we
all remember that Cuba was actively and heavily engaged in Grenada on the Bishop, and that, of course, irked the United States. Let's take another caller. Hello?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, sister.
Yes, I remember that period, and it's really, we need to draw some lessons from it.
Mm-hmm.
I do agree, because I was very much in support of the U.S. invasion of that time because of what was happening and to restore some order there. But I recall that, I should say, some of the lessons that we have to learn. One, from what we understand at the time, was that the government of the day, that would be the Gary government, it had been in power for some time. And sometimes you have to be very careful in terms of encroaching dictatorships, depending on what is done. And that's the impression we got, that there were these encroaching dictatorship tendencies, and then there was the coup. But at the end of the day, after Maurice Bishop got in, and he was very popular there and in our country as well, at the end of the day, you still want a democratic system. That's how I look at it. Mm-hmm. And my understanding is that at that time, he was being encouraged by the U.S. and also by OECS countries to move into that direction. But the system he had put in place with, Bernard Court and the others, had a sort of a communal governing system. And they feared that if you reverted to the system where you have the prime minister, which would be, well, they call it first among equals or what have you, but that Westminster model, that their power, relatively speaking, would be undermined. And I think, from what I understood at the time, that was what drove them to do what they did. They locked up Bishop, and then when his people came to secure his release, they then rounded them up and then shot them. I mean, in the Caribbean, this is what was happening. Shot them, put them against a wall, summary execution, and that was the end of them. And so I think it is one time I would say I supported and admired what the U.S. did. Whatever the other ulterior motives they had was to bring or to restore the Westminster-type model there. And so that's my contribution at this time.
Thank you very much. Okay, we all remember the famous picture of Eugenia Child standing next to Ronald Reagan.
Yes.
Yes.
Hello?
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Right.
Appreciate that. Let's take another caller. Okay. Right. So the lady spoke of one of the lessons being learned is the corrupted nature of power. That those in power did not want to support Maurice Bishop leaning towards a more quote-unquote democratic avenue. And so again it proves George Beckford in Persistent Poverty, when he argues that no one seizes power with the intention of relinquishing it, because they don't see power as a means but as an end. And so it was the need for Code et al. to preserve their power, if not expand it and strengthen it, while they resisted Bishop, who was tending, some argue, towards a restoration, so to speak, of some of the democratic principles to which the Caribbean was and is accustomed. And the schism that developed as a result led to Bishop's death. And of course, the Grenadian people were subject afterwards to a curfew, according to Hudson, a curfew. Yes, a curfew was imposed where people were promised they'd be shot on sight if they violated it. I remember very well hearing that broadcast by Hudson, the general of the armed forces at the time. And so the Grenadian population was put in a very uncomfortable situation, but they rallied to the defense of the revolution that Bishop had introduced, had installed. They were in support of Bishop. And some argue that if the United States had not launched that invasion, that Code et al. Would not have been able to last long because of the lack of general support from the population at large. But Reagan, of course, precipitated their downfall by launching the invasion, which a lot of other countries took part in, including St. Kitts and Nevis. We sent a contingent of soldiers from we only had a reserve force at the time, from the reserve corps of the defense force and police officers. We were part of that peacekeeping body. We are grateful then we are happy that we participated in that process of ensuring that the Grenadian people were given the opportunity to again live free of dictatorship, which is what Code et al. Wanted to impose, as it were. They made that clear. And we know that our own Sir Dennis Byron was the judge who presided at the trial of the 13 of the conspirators who were found guilty of murdering Bishop, and they in fact were sentenced to die, but that was later reversed, and they were sentenced to long prison terms. Of course, I am not so sure if all of them have been released, maybe by now, no doubt, but I know Code himself, the leader of that gang, was in fact released a couple of years ago, and so on. So we learned that lesson then, that really when people seize power, whether democratically or otherwise, they really have great difficulty in voluntarily giving it up. We see what's happening now in Belarus, for example. We see what's happening in Thailand. We see what's happening in a number of countries where people believe that the leaders acquired power illegally, not through free and fair means, but rather via foul means, and so they are resisting. Why do men engage in this kind of behavior where they want to acquire power and hold on to it, come at me? Well, power corrupts. And we don't even have to go to where Lord Acton suggests that absolute power corrupts, absolutely. But it tells us that we really have to be careful about the love of power. And as some would argue, we need to replace that with the power of love. But that might just be a cliche, that might just be rhetoric. This is why we need to have checks and balances to ensure that the access to power and the use of power is not exercised in a manner that disadvantages and hurts the population at large. Tell us what you think about that or whatever is on your mind. But we reminisce a little bit on the events in Grenada back in 1979 and again in 1983, on this date in particular, in 1983. Right, so in St. Kitts, of course, we are fortunate to have, or to live in a society that has, followed democratic principles by and large over the years of our existence, especially since independence, and we're happy for that. And we really need to ensure that we allow that to continue. We let all ideas contend, and we submit to the will of the people, while not, of course, we must abide by the wishes of the majority, while not ignoring the demands and expectations of the minority. Yes, caller. Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Hi, sister.
Yes, teacher. What happened to Haiti? They can't come democratic up to now. Every time you turn your TV, this violence. What happened? Nobody they satisfied with the putting in, sir. They satisfied with the person who they put as the president and so. Every time and they just mashing up the country, going, what will happen? Oh my gosh. You see, nobody look like could get them stable. They're unstable. And when they don't mash the country, they come into your good country, and with the same behavior, they come peacefully, looking peacefully, but at the end of the day, you get them mad. They just start to do the uprising and so. What happened to them, Mr. Lake? What happened? They can't get nobody steady at all to run the country.
Yeah, I'm laughing because
so
Haiti has been a problem since its independence in 1804.
My gosh, up to now?
Yes, it's really a classic study. I know a number of persons would have done...
This president thief the money, that person thief this, that person, oh my God. Oh, jeez, but it's just bloodshed, blood. Oh my gosh. Okay, and with the grenade thing, they're frightened, Oh, they were talking like things would happen along here in the to us to know that they are the frightened for sure. I had a friend, that's just a correspondent pen friend, and she must have died in it because I never heard from her again because they said people went to town and they get caught up in the thing. I always say she must have died in it, them long time used to do your little pen friend there.
Of course, yeah, definitely.
Coming to the 80s and so, yeah. Yeah, that was a terrible day, boy. Oh my God. Up to now, nobody could explain. Oh, yeah, you're explaining it. Yeah, you're trying to explain it now, but nobody went. No, we went. Boy, oh, Mr. Moki, okay.
All right, thank you. The question of Haiti, of course, has been on our minds for years. We wonder why Haiti has been in the doldrums for such a long time, and what is the recipe for for the solution? Let's take a break now, and we'll come right back.
Currently, there are rumors and falsified reports circulating on social media about the novel coronavirus. For accurate information and updates, visit the Instagram and Facebook page of the Health Promotion Unit or the Ministry's YouTube channel at SynKits Health Promotion Unit or SynKits HPU. You may also visit online the World Health Organization or the Caribbean Public Health Agency. For further contact information, please contact the Ministry of Health for more info at 467-1172 or 467-1108. You can also be sure to follow the news to get the local COVID-19 updates. Let's all try to remain healthy and well. This is a message from the Ministry of Health and the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA.
Let me tell you something. Every Monday and Thursday night from 8 until 10 p.m. on Zolice Radio Power 96.1, tune in for Straight Talk.
Your job is to serve the people, not to get in the back and forth that sometimes as humans, people can say things about you and you believe there's a limit. But the one who wears the armor and carries the name of God, let him fight your battle.
It's a program where you can share your views.
Well, I don't usually call into the radio station, but I had to call in. I was in the Federation over the weekend, and I was quite impressed. Flew over Port Zante, and I see the development happening there. I drive up in the east in your area for years and years and years. That area has been neglected. Those houses there on the other side of Mr. Byron gas station was. See y'all getting ready to do something about it.
Ask your questions.
What Douglas want to do? Be a Satan and judging sin?
And speak your mind.
Good evening to you, Patches, and good evening to your listeners home and abroad. One good term deserves another. And like I said, one good term deserves another.
Tune in every Monday and Thursday night from 8 until 10 p.m. right here on Zolize Radio with your host, Ian Patches Liebert, for Straight Talk.
Partner, how you doing? Where you been these days?
I've been on the family land. I cut back all the trees and them and burned the bush and planted some crops. I just here in town getting more fertilizer and a pump to pull up the water from the river.
Wait, so all the bush and the trees gone?
If you see crops, it's like I growing money.
But you use the land stabilization techniques and have approval to take the river water, right?
Approval? The river is on my property and land, is my land.
Partner, the land is still the island. It's all of we have to live here. The soil runoff will silt up the river. The fertilizer will grow weeds and cause flood when season start. Plus the water resources for everyone, not just your crop. You don't realize the climate is changing?
Look, I don't care about all of that. It's my land, my crops, and my water. No one can tell me what to do.
This is our land, and climate change is changing the challenges we face as a nation. Land management technique, water resource protection, and flood and drought mitigation is for everyone who lives on this land. Our island. Be a part of the change. A message of hope from Island Resilience, promoting a climate of change.
This is my land, my island, our home. It's time to come together to keep her forever resilient and strong.
Island Resilience, promoting a climate of change. The Climate Change Adaptation and Sustainable Land Management Initiative of the OECS Commission, funded by the European Union.
Go to islandresilience.org for more information, or follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Awakening, cause the events in Grenada that day were shocking. Listen to Radio Free Grenada, I was dismayed and upset to learn how your criminal leader and his diehards met their death by fellow party members who struggle for the same cause, but it's like Judas came and wreaked havoc in your shores. My heart bleeds for you. The whole world mourn your loss.
Okay, thank you. And of course, that's the great Elimat commenting in his usual style on what happened in Grenada. Let's take this caller.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Yes, good morning. Good of you to remember the anniversary of the Grenada Revolution. It was a seminal moment in Caribbean history, I think.
Definitely, I agree.
Yeah. Bishop might have been popular with the people, but he certainly was not popular with Big Brother up north and with some of the more right-wing governments in the Caribbean. You know, they kept encouraging him to call elections, and he resisted. So in some ways, part of what happened was his fault with the invasion. As a matter of fact, many governments prayed for his populist systems that he introduced to fail. They didn't want an example of another Cuba, okay? For at that time, the region was caught up in the whole power struggle, the Cold War between Russia and America, right? And Reagan certainly did not want another Cuban showpiece in the Caribbean. And I think the U.S. at that time took the wrong side of the black liberation struggle in Africa, and didn't like the fact that Cuba was building, well, for one, they supported the black liberation struggle in Africa, and they were building an international airport in Grenada, which the U.S. feared would be used as a resupplying point for Cuban assistance to Africa. Okay? It also marked the demarcation of the parties in the region. So we had the Reagan-inspired Caribbean Democratic Union members. For instance, our government at the time subscribed to that, along with other right-wing governments in Dominica. You mentioned Charles.
St. Lucia, John Compton.
Right, because he had his own problems with, what's his name?
Sinak,
yeah, right. And also the Manly-Seaga power struggle, you remember that one?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, really bitter. Okay, and then you had also Adams in Barbados, who was another right-winger.
Yeah, and Barbados was the launching pad for the invasion.
Yeah, right. Okay, and, I was kind of torn between supporting the intervention for, I think it was primarily intended to look after U.S. interests rather than Grenada's interests. Okay? So I didn't like superpower intervention there, right? But I still have to look at the fact that Grenadans were shell-shocked after what Code did, right? And didn't know where this was going to end. Okay? And in any event, I don't think anybody wanted the Caribbean to become like Africa then at that point, where you had these constant coups to change government.
Constant coups and counter coups. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's undemocratic, and that does not help in development. It's counterproductive. All right, so I was torn between them. One could have said that Grenadans should have been left to solve their own problems. But what it shows is that if we tolerate undemocratic actions, then we reap what we sow. Because that problem was festering for some time.
On the Gary, you mean?
Huh?
On the Gary?
On the Gary, yeah.
Oh. Mm.
Okay? And Gary had his supporters too. So we should always be careful when we have these cult of the personalities and you run behind a particularly popular figure rather than be more cognizant of the systems that keep their power in check. Okay? But with regards to your question about whether it can happen again, that's unlikely, right? The U.S. will never tolerate it. Never. Okay? As a matter of fact, I well remember around the same time, I think it was in Barbados then, when the U.S. government sent an aircraft carrier. I mean, it was almost as big as Bridgetown. It couldn't even dock there, how big it was. And they had an air show with their fighter jets over over Bridgetown. It's as if to say, behave yourself or else. You don't mess with Uncle Sam, right? They wanted Reagan. Reagan wasn't into the niceties, okay? And so he made sure, and I think other presidents would follow him. You're not going to tolerate not even an ant causing trouble in the region.
In the United States backyard.
In the backyard. Okay, that's the long and short of it. Okay, but it certainly changed. It certainly had an effect on our policies, our Caribbean politics, and on policies going forward. I think the U.S. then introduced the Caribbean Basin Initiative, and those kind of tentative steps to to shore up their support in the region. Unfortunately, all of that has subsided now. Their interest now is in Venezuela, okay, and we're just an aside, but it won't happen again.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, okay then.
All right. One of the things that bothers me is really why this morbid and sordid fear of things leftists and so-called socialist communists on the part of the United States. Let's take this caller. Hello?
Okay, I want to criticize Mr. McMahon.
No problem.
Something he said there. I don't curse, I criticize. He said that when the aircraft carrier was in Barbados, they put on the issue and say, well, you better behave yourself, or else. That couldn't be to Barbados because Tom Adams was one of the magnets, along with Miss Charles, behind the U.S. coming in. So they had asked Britain for intervention, and Britain tell them no. And it surprised me under Margaret Thatcher. But America was a better place because they got weaponry and everything that Britain don't have, apart from the nuclear thing. But
no, we're talking proximity here.
Yeah?
Proximity is also important.
I didn't hear you at all.
Proximity also was critical.
Yes, all of that. Obviously, backyard, like I said earlier when I called in, that the shipping lanes torn from United States are important. They still are important, but the fact is now, United States have a lot of weapons that they improve on, I mean, all who developing weapons. So, they got missiles to follow all over the place. They never had no drone, the deadly drone that they have now. They never had them before. So, there are a great number of things that do cause change. But they'll put sanctions on you and so forth.
No, but you're saying you disagree with Mr. McMahon. What's the essence? I'm not sure you followed up on that.
Say that again?
You were saying you disagree with McMahon's assertion that the lesson the United States wanted to teach was, hey, behave yourself.
When he said they had a massive aircraft carrier in Barbados.
In Barbadian waters, yes.
And they put on an issue, maybe threatening Barbados to say. But he never really said Barbados.
No. I don't think that's what he was implying at all.
He was saying behave yourself. But United States had to be concerned. I would have been concerned. Small nation then and causing big people face, certain things I could understand. But not when it comes to fighting for ideology and so. You're small, stay small, cooperate, do like Singapore and some other progressive small nation and you're successful. Not wheeling the kind of thing where you want to wheel. Develop your people and forget about that kind of influence. Don't get in that kind of mix there with Cuba them and all of that. But to Reagan credit, was Reagan and Thatcher put pressure on the people in South Africa, to free Mandela, And Reagan also had a slogan. Okay, I believe that in the past, some U.S. administration would influence the overthrow or the overthrowing of some government in Latin America, etc., etc. But Reagan said, if you're my friend, you can't be a dictator. You have to have democratic elections. He did say that over and over and over. So to his credit. But again, I don't know how you miss that. Up to this day, I believe Grenada is the only, apart from Barbados, of the OECS. I think Grenada has a U.S. embassy, but they don't do everything there. They don't do everything there like grant you your green card and that kind of thing. But I know they had an embassy there. Lastly, when they opened Ross University here and West Ram, I had to be there. I happened to be there. And the U.S. representative from Barbados, you know what he said? Let me tell you all something, The U.S. laid down lives in Grenada, and this is not an easy thing. And this is a very, very serious part of U.S. foreign policy. And I noticed when you're flying in to St. Kitts Airport, and you're coming on the south there, you see the name of Ross University, big letters, When you're flying, you could see them. So that went there after the Grenada problem. So, and then they were saying, in the beginning, they were saying, UC guys said that after university there, they were going to protect America.
Yeah, 30 seconds more.
So, you can't stop. I know a lot of things about it, but I just can't talk all of that now. You need a program especially for that.
Okay.
Where people could say different things and all the pieces could be added up together.
All right, thank you.
Yes, have a good day, Mr. Blake. I remember your name now.
I appreciate that. Okay, let's take another caller. Hello, caller.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Blake.
Talk to me.
Hello.
Yes, I'm hearing you.
You hear me? Mr. Blake.
Yes, sir.
Grenada. I went down to Grenada in 1985.
Uh-huh.
They had a problem was 83. Right? Hello?
Yes, I'm hearing you. Carry on.
We went there to do some boxing. The OECS Amateur Boxing Championship held in Grenada in 1985. And when I got into Grenada, I feel the American system, the Cuba system in Grenada. But the American system was a Muhammad Ali type. Hello? You know why the Muhammad Ali type of boxing? A lot of threats, get you scared. And you could have seen it in Grenada. You could have feel it down in Grenada. The American system was there and keeping out Cuba. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's take another caller. Hello.
Good morning, Brother Blake.
Morning, sir.
Yeah, man. Well, everybody says America, this and America, that, right? But thank God for America sometimes. Because if it wasn't for America, I believe that thing will continue in the Caribbean. And all of us will be in that dictatorship government. Because it was leading up to one here too. If unity never come, maybe that what you want will not get on, but something will happen again in this federation. So I'm glad that this unity come. And the unity come to help take dictatorship from people, from leaders who always think they can rule for life. And but a break before go, anybody could take it to court to call in them by the husband name or the right name? Calling them by the married name.
I'm not sure. If a lady's name is Mrs. Blake, if you call her Mrs. Blake, if she can take you to court?
Well, next week I got to go to court because a lady summons me to call in her by she title, by she married name, she her name.
That sounds
I want to show the magistrate that the judge go work out that one.
Yeah, well, wait until that time, but that sounds a bit strange.
All right then.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, the lady is still married?
Still married, yes.
Really? Well, that's interesting.
Still lovely married.
What?
Still loving husband, yeah.
Something sounds wrong there.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, well, wish you all the best there. Okay, let's take another caller. No? All right. What I noticed when I went to Grenada, though, was that there's a monument to the fallen U.S. soldiers. Of course, as a result of who died as a result of the invasion. And I asked about the monument to the locals, Bishop et al., and there was none. Apart from naming the Fort Rupert. It used to be Fort George, just like we have a Fort George here. And of course, those will be named for kings of England. There was no monument. So I questioned that. Why is there no monument to the locals who died, but there was a monument to the U.S. soldiers, invading soldiers. A previous caller, before I take this other caller, a previous caller said that Thatcher and Reagan were responsible for Mandela's release. I definitely don't think that is accurate. Apart from the fact that Mandela was released long after both had exited the scene, both Thatcher and Reagan had exited the scene, I really am not so sure that that is historically accurate. But let's take this caller and see what he or she has to say. Hello?
Mr. Blake?
Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good day.
Ethel, no, nice to hear from you. How are you doing?
I heard about Trinidad. When I do over Trinidad?
The attempted overthrow, yes.
1990?
Yes.
The 27?
Yes.
I was in Trinidad at the same time.
You were? Okay. I'm glad nothing happened to you.
Yeah, I working for the Trinidad at the same time. Yeah.
Okay, nice.
For a workshop, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Ethel, Ratcliffe Boyen's wife, president of the Council for the Blind. Everybody knows Ethel. She was in China at the time when Abu Bakr and his men tried the thing in 1990, but of course in 1970 there had been a previous similar incident. All right, but that one failed, of course. Some would argue, fortunately, and some would say unfortunately, that failed. All of that was bloody as well, in the sense that some lives were lost. Right. So we've been looking at the Grenada Revolution, the second one, and the end of it, and its implications. Let's take this caller. Hello.
Hello, Brother Blake.
Yes, sir.
Good morning. I'm late.
So be it. No problem.
Yeah. Politics, good morning. You ain't gonna pull Mr. Blake between the tree and the bark, okay? You must know what tree you're climbing. No, the person who said that Ronald Reagan, and who the other person was again?
Thatcher. Margaret Hilda Thatcher.
Yeah. Nothing to so. Mandela was released from prison February the 11th, 1990.
Right, you are.
And Mr. Reagan had done gone a long time.
1982, and Thatcher
Right.
in 1980.
Right.
Sorry,
They had
1990.
done gone. They had
Yes.
nothing to do with that. But why couldn't they get him out of prison even before they went as president? Because they had powers. And the powers were bringing them up to the front line to be elected as president. So I got it in my head. And America, I mean, why name Mr. Bishop? He had to seek help and where he get it, and Castro was the man who willing to help him. Because what he wanted when he needed the help, those big chest, big shoulder people, they refused to give him. And it's after the civil, then he turned to Mr. Castro, and Castro come in and was building airport in Grenada. They say, no, we're going to step in here now, let me stop Castro. We're going in there to attack him, because he ain't supposed to get no help from Castro. Don't take none, because Castro will use that to do what he want. I wouldn't say what he want, because they didn't know what he want to do. They look at it and accuse Castro. So that's the reason why they went down there in Grenada, go do what they did. So that's the way the story go.
Okay.
Anyway, politics. You're on the good track. Mr. Blake don't tell you, once the person is still lawfully married, you're on the good track. But me and Blake can get in between you and the back. Okay, Blake.
All right, thank you. Okay. Yes, but we must remember that it was the killing of Bishop. Of course, the United States would have wanted to see the end of the revolution and the direction in which it was heading from the time it started in 1979. But it was the killing of Bishop that precipitated the invasion, because Eugenia Charles and others in the OECS decided that that was not a good precedent to set, and they were afraid that, well, whatever the implications, the ramifications were, and so in collusion with the United States, some would say in collaboration and cooperation with the United States, the invasion was launched, and that put an end to Code and his hopes to take over from Bishop and impose his particular radical style of government. Okay, we have another caller? No? Well, then I think we'll say thanks to all those who did call and participate in this short discussion. And persons seem to be of the opinion generally that certain events that happened in Grenada will not recur. Hello? Let's hope they're right. Let's take this final caller.
Mr. Blake.
Yes, make it quick, please.
I want. This is James Davis here. I'm working at the bus terminal, right?
Yes.
And what really going on? That then he have to start coming here to hucksters coming here to hawks and friend and different things like this here, selling cake and different things like this here after chase them. I want you to broadcast it over the radio that the bus terminal is only for passengers to sit down. The chase them is only for people to sit down, not for people to selling things and different things like this here.
Yeah, okay,
not
but
for people to selling things out and the thing and the thing. And I got the chase in the chase and different things like this here.
okay. Thank you very much.
So forth.
Yeah, but I'm sure there's a relevant authority to impose those particular restrictions. I'm not so sure if the folks who are doing that even need to be reminded of that is not allowed. But thank you very much nonetheless for voicing that concern, and thank you for being a part of Frank and Candid today, Monday, 19th October 2020. Until we meet again, remember, please do the right thing.
At ZIZ, we want to take a moment to salute our small business owners and encourage you to support them. Our small business owners are always hard at work providing quality goods and services to you. They also provide employment for many and can be counted on to give back to our communities. Today and every day, we salute our small business owners and we say thank you for the opportunity to provide advertising services to you. If you're a small business, call us at 465-2621 to join our family of small business advertisers. Call us 465-2621. You'll be glad you did.
Who in your family takes charge during an emergency? Do you have a family emergency plan? If you don't, here are some things every responsible member of the family should know. How to turn off water, gas and electricity. Basic first aid. Where to go and what to do when a disaster strikes. When do you evacuate your home? Find out today how you can protect your family.
This message is sponsored by the Australian Government, AusAid, and produced by NEMA in collaboration with ZIZ Radio.
ZIZ Radio now presents the major newscast, story